Hi everybody, Keith Tanner here from Flyin Miata, and today I'm going to be talking about something that's pretty exciting for me personally, and that is the second edition of one of my Miata books. For those who don't know, I have written a number of books on the Miata, Miata specifically, and this is something I've been working on for, I think I wrote my first one back in 2003, so it's fun to be able to share information with the world. It's fun to see these books get out there, and it's like launching a new little baby out there into the world when a new one comes along. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Before I get into it, just a little note. If you are watching this live, make sure if you have any questions or any comments, throw them in the comments. I will do my best to get the information, to answer your questions, whatever it is, live. If you're watching this in the future, put your questions in the comments. We do read every single comment. We will answer any questions that we can in those comments. And of course, if you like this kind of content, make sure to like our channel, make sure to subscribe. You'll get notifications about upcoming videos, and heck, everybody wins. So, books. I wrote my first book about the Miata back in 2003. It was called Mazda Miata Performance Projects. It's a how-to book on how to do various things like installing a new top, installing a clutch, changing out brake pads. At the time I wrote it, I was working every single day in the Flyin Miata shop, and I go back to it today and I'm amazed at what that kid knew in terms of, like, he just knew his way around a wrench in a car. And I actually still use this for wrenchers myself. I'm about to change the top on one of my cars at home, and so I've got my copy of this book. I had to borrow this one. My copy of this book is in my shop at home, so I can use it as a reference. So this one's still a very popular book. It only covers NAs and MBs for obvious reasons. 2003, a VVT Miata was still a new thing. But it's a useful one. I'm just gonna go through a little history on this stuff first. Second one I wrote was How to Build a Cheap Sports Car. This was 2005, and that is a Miata-based low-cost or Lotus 7 replica. This was a lot of fun to write because I got to build the car first, and then I got to write the book about it. Unfortunately, it was not a huge seller, and it has fallen out of print. These are now apparently trading for good money online if you can find yourself a used copy or a new old stock, but this one unfortunately is no longer available. I do have the rights to it myself, so maybe someday I'll bring it back, but at the moment, this one is not available to you. A couple of years later was Find It, Fix It, Trick It, and this was written in 2007. I refer to this one as Miata 101. This is, if you're thinking of buying a Miata, especially one built before 2007, this is the one to go to. It's got all sorts of stuff about the history of the car. It goes into the basics, how to buy a good one. It's also got what I find very useful. It's got a reference in the back with year-to-year changes, similar to Chris Lambert's Miata in America guide that's on Miata.net. This one I went back to the sources for some of the information. It's got some slightly different information than Chris's does, but I use this as a reference myself, and I want to know what year did Crystal Blue Mica or Splash Green come out, for example. That's the sort of stuff I find useful in here. But in 2010, I got the chance to write the book that I think it's my personal favorite. How to Build a High Performance Mazda MX-5, Mazda Miata MX-5. This is not a how-to book. This is a why-to book. This is the book that talks about the background behind the modifications, behind how things work, what the various systems do, how they affect each other, the difference between supercharger and turbocharging, and how they affect each other, or how they work differently and what you need to do to actually install them, engine management, suspension, engine swaps, braking. There's 3 whole chapters on suspension in terms of the first one is just the physics, the second one is the theory of modification, and the third one gets into what do all the parts do. So, as you might have noticed from watching this channel, I love talking about the theory behind the cars, the theory behind how they work, what they do, how the different parts work. That's basically distilled in this. And this is a book, we actually still use this as more or less a textbook when we're doing training for our customer service team. If we've got someone who's new into the Miata world, or we're trying to dive a little deeper into a topic, we'll often use this as at least a starting textbook because it's a good overall base on how the cars work. Problem is, it was written in 2010. The NC was still fairly new, and time has moved on in the past 15 years. 15 years, man. So last year, I started working on the second edition. I went to my publisher and said, hey, I'd really like this book. It's a great book, but it's getting dated. So what I want to do is bring it up to date, talk about the NDs, talk about some of the new technologies we have, the new things we're doing, the way things have shifted. And that's when the second edition came about. So The most obvious thing is it's got an ND. We put it on the cover just to make sure you understand. It's got NDs in it. It covers a lot of the changes in technology. For example, we don't see, especially in the newer cars, NDs, you don't see full replacement ECUs. Well, maybe the Global Cup cars, but you don't see it in the aftermarket. You see a lot of reflashing. And the previous edition doesn't have a lot on reflashes because it was still fairly much in its infancy. It wasn't all that common at the point. Now it's the way to go for the newer cars. So there's a lot on that. There's been changes in the marketplace in terms of what people are asking for, what people are doing with the cars, and I wanted to reflect that as well. So, like everything, it's bigger and better. It actually is bigger. It has more pages in it, which gave me room to stretch out a little bit more on some of my favorite topics. There's an entire new chapter on aero specifically because I think aerodynamics has come a long way in the last 15 years, and it's something that's accessible to everybody, even if you're, in an emissions-constrained area. You can always play with aero. As you can see, we like to play with it ourselves in some of the cars that are back here. So this is something I've always enjoyed. I got a chance to talk about it a little bit more. It also talks a little bit more about swaps because that is an area that has changed quite a bit over the last 15 years. LS swaps are fairly new at the time. Now they're boring. So there's more on things like K-swaps, on the Rocketeer V6, for example, that's in here. So I tried to acknowledge what had changed over the years. Also, it's available as an ebook. I think this one is available as an ebook as well. The earlier ones were not, simply because they weren't a thing at the time, but this one is also available in, say, a Kindle edition. I prefer the print myself because I like to be able to hold it and make notes. This one is full of notes, for example. But hey, if that's what you want, it can be arranged. But here's just an example of some of the new stuff we have in here. This is the aerodynamics chapter. Lots because of the more pages, we have more room for nice big pictures. So lots of pictures of stuff that's on here. It's going on. We got some nice CFD from the guys at Varus. They were good enough to supply me with some good graphics for that to help explain what's going on as clearly as possible. So there's also one other benefit about buying one now, and that is this is the first print run. When they're doing larger print runs, they are printed on an offset press, which is a more traditional way of printing. You get very good print quality out of it. It's cheaper per book, but it's more expensive to start up. Once the volumes start dropping, especially in a niche title like a Miata, they start doing print on demand, digital printing, and which is great because it keeps the books in print, because it allows for a smaller production run, but unfortunately it means usually a lower print quality. The print quality on the second edition that we have right now is much better than the previous first edition, the final, the final few runs of the first edition. So the nice thing about this is very, very sharp images, much sharper print quality, higher paper quality. So I'm happy about that. Also, amazingly, in 15 years, the cover price has only gone up from $5. That's a pretty good deal as far as I'm concerned. So we had some questions about this. Do we have any new questions that popped up yet? Nope. One of the questions is, if I already have the first edition, do I need the second, and do I need them both? And the answer is you don't need them both. I mean, I've got them both because, hey, I wrote them all. But almost everything that's in the first edition is still in the second. The second edition is expanded. If you have the first and you're running, say, a first or second generation car, there's not a lot of new stuff in there that may apply to you. If you're interested in the aerodynamics of it, for example, definitely there's more exploration in there. If you're interested in engine management and you're running a Mega Squirt, something like that section didn't change that much because honestly, Mega Squirts haven't changed that much in 15 years, other than a few more capabilities, but the concepts haven't changed. So I think everyone should go up and buy the new one, personally. But if you do have this one and it is serving your needs already, maybe it's not something you need, unless you want a picture of me with more gray hair wrenching on a car than I had back in 2010. Anyway. Another question that we got is, which of these books is my favorite? And I have to say it is actually the How to Build, because this is the one that teaches people how to do things. It teaches people what they need to know to do things well. And honestly, it could apply to any car. It's Miata specific, but all the fundamentals, the physics of braking, the physics of suspension still apply. So I like this one because it teaches people what they need to know and doesn't just tell them how to do one thing. So personally, I'm a big fan of it. Something funny going on in the comments over there because I can see all the guys chuckling in the background. We'll find out that later. One of the other questions is, do I plan on writing any more books? Say, how to build a Miata race car. Well, there's some race car stuff in this one. Writing a book is like taking on a second full-time job. I've got other stuff I like doing other than writing books. I have a couple publishers who are interested in doing things. These days I tend to do more magazine articles. I'll do an occasional article, say for Gracious Motorsports, but I don't have any plans to do any full-length books anytime soon, but you never know. I might get a great idea. We might come up with a good pitch for a publisher. I almost wrote one on off-road recovery back about 20 years ago. That would have been a fun one. Maybe I'll dust that one off again. But yeah, at the moment, this is the latest and greatest and maybe the last one. Looking at the notes over here. Oh, did I start from scratch or did I just add information to the second edition? I did not start from scratch. That's what makes it a second edition, not a new book. I basically went through the first edition, page by page, picture by picture, caption by caption, and say, okay, this is out of date, this needs to be updated, we need to make sure to include this. I got a lot of feedback from the customer support team at Flyin Miata because we were actually working our way through the first book at that time. So they gave me a lot of feedback saying we need to expand this doesn't mention over here. So it is a second edition. It is the same core, but it has been expanded upon. It has been updated. It has been corrected if necessary, but it still has a lot of the same information that was in there originally, and it's still built on the same bones. The last question is, how do I get one signed? At the moment, we're not shipping signed copies from Flyin Miata. If you really want to get one signed, the best thing to do is catch me at an event. Catch me at Miata's at the Gap, or the Flyin Miata Summer Camp, or there's a couple other big events that I'm making visits to. If I'm there, I'm happy to deface your book for you, even personalize it. But at the moment, we're not shipping signed copies from Flyin Miata. Availability, this is published by Motor Books, so it's available pretty much anywhere fine books are sold, also on Amazon. We have them here at Flyin Miata, of course, but it should be a fairly easy book to get because Motor Books has got very good distribution. They're all over the place. That's one of the things that makes it nice to work with them instead of doing a small vanity press that doesn't have any distribution. These guys should be available just about anywhere. You may not find it on the shelf at your local Barnes & Noble, but you can always ask them. They can get it for you. Do you have any questions over there or just snarky comments, guys? Does this new book explain the greatness of the 1.6? That would be Ethan, and Ethan just sold his 1.6, so I'm not sure Ethan's in a place to be saying anything about that. The 1.6 is covered. There is no value judgment given as to the greatness of the different engines. I did a whole video on that one a while ago. Ethan can just go back and watch that one again. So the question is, if it focuses on one generation more than the others, and I've tried to avoid that. It does cover as much as possible of all the generations. Some things are universal. Suspension dynamics, for example, are the same no matter what you've got an NA, an NB, or an NC. Although I will point out that in the handling theory sections, all the diagrams are an NC. So we do have that going for us. That's all the weight transfer. This first chapter, I believe, is actually available for download on the Flyin Miata website. If you go to the listing for the book, you can download the handling theory chapter. It's from the first edition, but this one didn't change dramatically other than putting some new pictures in because handling theory, physics of handling is the physics of handling. But that if you want to get a taste for what's in the book, that's a good way to do it. Because it deals with how things work as opposed to buy this part instead of this part, it doesn't really focus on a specific generation. What adding the ND allowed me to do was talk more about things like direct injection, about the crazy amount of variable valve timing they have available to them, about the sophistication of the reflashing, the CAN bus, that kind of stuff. Things that the ND brought to the table didn't exist in the others, but that doesn't mean it's just about the ND. It means that I've managed to include it as well. So the NC is represented, the NA is represented, the NC is, all of them are represented. I've tried to take pictures of the various generations as much as possible so that they're evenly split. So, obviously the earlier books that were written before the NC came out don't have NC content. This one does have quite a bit, as well as ND content and NA and NB. Basically, it's all Miatas. So we've tried to we got three generations on the cover. We weren't able to squeeze in an NB just because we ran out of room, but they're all in there. Okay. Well, if you do have any questions about this, about the book or where you can get it, Flyin Miata, or heck, just general snarky comments apparently, which is what's going on in the comments over there, feel free to throw them in the comments. We'd be glad to see them. And also don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you get notification about more videos like this. We do at least one live video a week, plus of course all the usual drops of event wrap-ups and instruction videos, all sorts of solid Miata content without influencer hijinks. It's a good place to be. From Flyin Miata, my name's Keith Tanner. Thanks for watching.